Every man thinks he knows what makes women tick, but very few actually understand the cracks in the armor. The truth is, women have weaknesses just like men do, and if you can recognize them, you stop playing the game blind. This isn't about manipulation or hate, it's about awareness. A man who understands the weak points of female psychology and behavior automatically moves differently. He stops getting fooled, stops overthinking, and starts leading with confidence. Welcome back to the channel, gentlemen. This is where we cut through the noise and talk about what actually works in the real world. And today we're tackling something most people are too scared to say out loud. The 7 main weaknesses that women try to hide, but every man should know. Now here's the controversial part. Society constantly tells you women are untouchable, flawless, and always in control. But if that were true, why do so many women test men, chase validation, or crumble when a man doesn't give them attention? The reality is, those weaknesses are there, and once you see them, you can never unsee them. You'll understand why she acts the way she does, why she says one thing but does another, and why men who recognize these truths end up holding the power in relationships. This isn't about shaming women, it's about arming you with knowledge. Because a man who ignores these weaknesses will always fall into the same traps. Overinvesting, getting manipulated, or losing himself just to keep her happy. But the man who understands them, he stays calm, centered, and in control. So buckle up, because what I'm about to share might change the way you see women forever. 1. Women crave validation more than love. Here's the part most men get wrong. They believe women are out here searching for true love above all else. They think the fairy tale is her ultimate goal, that the man who offers unconditional affection automatically wins her over. But that's not the full truth. What women actually crave, what they can't live without, is validation. That constant reminder that they're wanted, attractive, desired, and above all, valuable. Think about it. A woman can be in a committed relationship with a man who genuinely loves her, yet she still posts revealing pictures online, still entertains compliments from strangers, still checks if other men are noticing her. Why? Because love is not the fuel that keeps her going. Validation is. It's the little hits of approval that reassure her she still has options, that she still holds power in the dating market. Now here's why this matters for you as a man. When you understand that women crave validation more than love, you stop overinvesting in trying to prove yourself through romantic gestures. Flowers, long text messages, constant attention, those things don't secure her loyalty. In fact, the more validation you hand out on a silver platter, the less valuable it becomes to her. She begins to expect it, and eventually she stops respecting it. Men who don't understand this end up draining themselves emotionally. They think, if I just love her harder, she'll stay. Meanwhile, the guy who barely gives her attention often becomes the one she obsesses over. Why? Because his validation is rare, unpredictable, and therefore much more powerful. This doesn't mean you should never compliment a woman or show affection. It means you must be intentional. Your attention has to carry weight. When you give it sparingly, it feels earned. It keeps her invested, keeps her curious, and keeps her respecting you. But if you pour it out constantly, you rob it of value, and she starts to see you as weak, needy, and replaceable. Society won't admit this because it sounds harsh. Women will even deny it, insisting they only want real love. But actions tell the truth louder than words. Watch closely, and you'll see that validation is the currency they operate on. Love might be the story they tell themselves, but validation is the reality they live by. The man who understands this doesn't become bitter. He becomes strategic. He realizes that controlling his validation is one of the strongest ways to hold power in any interaction. Because the moment she sees you as the man whose approval is not easily earned, you become the man she cannot ignore. 2. Attention is their real addiction. If you want to truly understand female behavior, you have to look beyond what they say and pay attention to what they chase. Women will tell you they want a good man, a stable relationship, someone who treats them right, but watch their actions closely and you'll see a different truth. The real addiction isn't love, It isn't commitment, it's attention. Attention is the oxygen of the female ego. Without it, she feels invisible, powerless, and irrelevant. This is why you'll see women glued to their phones, scrolling endlessly for likes and comments. It's why a woman in a relationship might still dress in ways designed to turn heads, or why she entertains messages from men she has no intention of meeting. She doesn't need these men in her life, but she thrives off the attention they provide. Here's where most men get it wrong. They assume that if they give her more attention than anyone else, she'll finally be satisfied. But attention works like a drug. The more she gets, the more she wants. She builds a tolerance, and your constant attention starts to feel routine, even boring. That's why she can get bored in a relationship with a man who gives her everything, yet stay hooked on the thrill of attention from strangers. Now, this doesn't mean women are evil, it just means you need to understand the game. If attention is her addiction, then you can't be the man who feeds it endlessly. The man who drowns her in compliments, texts her all day, and never leaves space for mystery ends up lowering his value. His attention becomes cheap. She doesn't crave it anymore because she knows she can have it whenever she wants. The men who stand out are the ones who treat their attention like a scarce resource. They don't validate every move she makes, they don't rush to reply to every text, and they don't put her on a pedestal. Their attention feels rare, almost like a prize. And because it's rare, it triggers the very addiction women can't escape, the desire to earn it. Think of it like this. A woman might get 100 likes from strangers online, but the one man she actually wants attention from is the one who doesn't give it so freely. That's the man she thinks about. That's the man who keeps her curious. That's the man she feels she hasn't won yet, and her addiction pushes her to try harder. Men, this is where you flip the script. Stop pouring out attention like it's endless, because it isn't valued that way. Make it count. Give it when she deserves it, when she's earned it, when it actually means something. That's how you control the addiction rather than being consumed by it. Because once you master this, you're no longer just another man giving her what every guy already gives. You're the one she can't stop chasing. 3. Independence is only a performance. We live in a time where women proudly say, "I don't need a man." You hear it in songs, see it on social media, and watch it play out in modern dating. At face value, it looks convincing. Women talk about independence, freedom, and living life on their own terms. But if you peel back the layers, you'll see that much of this independence is a performance, an act designed more for appearance than reality. Here's what most men don't realize. Women are social creatures who thrive on connection, support, and security. The idea that she can live without men sounds empowering on the surface, but watch her behavior closely. Even the most outspoken, independent woman still wants male attention, still desires emotional connection, and still looks for someone to lead when life gets tough. Independence is often more about image than truth. Think about it. If women were truly self-sufficient in the way they claim, why do so many still invest enormous amounts of energy in attracting male attention, whether through appearance, social media, or lifestyle choices? Why do so many proudly say they don't need a man, but still want the stability of a relationship when the lights go out? Because the performance of independence is about signaling strength, while deep down, the natural desire for companionship, protection, and leadership never goes away. Now, here's the part men need to understand. If you take her performance at face value and try to compete with it, if you believe she wants you to submit, play smaller, or let her lead, you will lose her respect. Because while she may talk about independence, her actions often prove she still wants a man who stands firm in his role. The performance ends the moment she faces real challenges. When life gets difficult, when bills pile up, when she feels unsafe, she naturally looks for masculine strength to anchor her. This doesn't mean you should dismiss her words or mock her independence. What it does mean is that you shouldn't let it intimidate you or make you question your value. Many men shrink themselves because they think modern women don't want traditional masculinity anymore. The truth? They still do. Independence is often the mask, but dependence on a strong, reliable man is still the reality when it counts. As a man, you have to see through the act without being bitter. Respect her ability to handle herself, but don't believe for a second that it replaces her desire for a strong man in her life. Your role isn't to compete with her independence. It's to stand solid in your masculinity so that when the performance fades, you're the man she instinctively turns to. And that's the key. Independence may be the show she puts on for the world, but dependence on strength, security, and leadership, that's the part of the story she can't erase, no matter how loud she claims otherwise. 4. Emotions, control them more than logic. One of the biggest mistakes men make in relationships is assuming women process the world the same way they do. Men lean on logic, cause and effect, problem and solution. Women, however, lean on emotions first. Their decisions, their reactions, even the way they love, are often driven more by how they feel in the moment than by what makes sense logically. And if you don't understand this, you'll keep getting frustrated trying to reason with her when she's being emotional. Let's make this real with an example. Imagine John, a hardworking guy who provides for his girlfriend Sarah. He pays the bills, he's consistent, he doesn't cheat, and on paper, he's the perfect partner. But one night Sarah gets upset because he didn't text her, "Good morning." John thinks, this makes no sense. I do everything for her, and she's mad over a text? That's logic talking. But from her perspective, that small missing gesture triggered an emotional response. She didn't feel desired in that moment, and her emotions overpowered the bigger picture of what John provides. This is why so many men feel blindsided. They think, I gave her stability, I gave her love, I gave her everything. Why is she upset over something small? The answer is simple. Her emotions dictate her reality in that moment. Logic takes a back seat. She knows deep down that John loves her, but the emotion of not feeling wanted outweighs that knowledge. Now here's where men mess up. They try to argue her out of her emotions with logic. They say, that doesn't make sense. Look at everything I've done. But the more you argue, the less she feels heard. Instead of calming down, she escalates. Why? Because you're ignoring her emotional reality. The men who succeed in relationships understand this dynamic. They don't get dragged into debating facts when she's upset. Instead, they address her emotions first. In John's case, instead of defending himself, he could have said, I didn't realize missing that text made you feel overlooked. That wasn't my intention. Suddenly, the tension dissolves. Why? Because he validated her feelings before bringing in logic. This doesn't mean you should let emotions control the relationship. It means you have to recognize they will always play a bigger role for her than for you. The key is balance. A woman driven only by emotions becomes chaotic, but a man driven only by logic becomes cold. The power comes when you, as a man, can stay logical while understanding her emotional lens. That's what keeps you grounded and prevents unnecessary fights. Remember this. Women don't fall in love with men because of logic. They fall in love because of how a man makes them feel. Logic may bring security, but emotions keep her invested. If you can master the art of leading with logic while respecting her emotional world, you'll always stay in control of the relationship. 5. Power shifts when you withhold interest. One of the most overlooked truths in relationships is how quickly power shifts when you stop pouring constant interest into a woman. Women are highly sensitive to where a man's energy goes. The moment you withhold interest, whether intentionally or simply because you're focused on yourself, she feels it. And when she feels it, everything changes. Here's the problem. Most men mishandle this shift. Instead of staying calm and steady, they either overreact or collapse under the pressure. For example, if a woman notices you're not giving her the same energy and she says, "You don't care about me anymore," the average man panics. He rushes to reassure her with desperate phrases like, No, I love you more than anything. I promise I'll try harder." He thinks he's fixing the problem, but in reality, he just handed her the power. His eagerness to prove himself confirms that she controls his behavior. Another mistake men make is using withholding as a game, ignoring her calls, acting cold, or trying to manipulate her emotions. This might work temporarily, but eventually it backfires. A woman can sense when your detachment is fake, and instead of respecting you, she'll resent you. So what's the right approach? It starts with confidence. If she calls you out for not showing as much interest, don't panic and over-explain. Keep it simple and calm. You could say, I've just been focused on my priorities. It doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I have things I need to handle. That shows strength. It tells her your world doesn't revolve entirely around her, but it also reassures her you're not abandoning her. Another powerful response is honesty without desperation. If she asks why you're not as affectionate, you can say, I don't believe in giving affection non-stop. I want it to mean something when I show it. That shifts the frame. Instead of you chasing her approval, she starts thinking about how to earn yours. The right thing to do when withholding interest isn't about punishment. It's about maintaining balance. You're reminding her, without words, that your time and energy are valuable. You're showing her that you have a life beyond her and that your attention isn't something she can take for granted. When you do this correctly, two things happen. First, she respects you more because she realizes you're not desperate for her validation. Second, her attraction grows because she feels she has to put in effort to keep your attention. And effort equals investment. Remember this: a man who panics when she complains about his interest loses power. A man who calmly explains his priorities or sets boundaries gains it. Women may not admit it openly, but they're far more drawn to the man who doesn't hand over all his energy than to the man who drowns them in it. 6. Fear of loneliness drives their choices. If there's one weakness most men don't see clearly, it's how deeply the fear of loneliness shapes a woman's decisions. On the surface, she might look independent, confident, even surrounded by friends. But underneath, many women carry a quiet fear. The fear of being left alone without the comfort, security, or attention of a man. This fear drives more of her behavior than most men realize. Think about it. Why do so many women jump into relationships quickly after a breakup instead of taking time to heal? Why do some stay in toxic relationships long past the point of happiness? Why do others keep men on the back burner, responding just enough to keep him around even if she's not truly interested? The answer is simple. Loneliness terrifies her more than heartbreak. Here's the thing: women are wired to seek connection. When that connection is threatened, their fear of being alone kicks in hard. A man might see her decisions as irrational, like running back to an ex who treated her badly, or entertaining men she doesn't respect. But from her perspective, it's about filling the gap. Silence, distance, or emptiness makes her anxious. So she clings to whatever option is available. Now here's where most men slip up. They mistake her fear of loneliness for love. Just because she comes back, just because she doesn't let go, doesn't mean it's because of how much she values him. Sometimes it's just because the idea of being without him feels scarier than staying. Men who don't understand this end up overvaluing their role in her life, thinking she's with them out of pure love, when in reality, fear is the main motivator. So how should you handle this knowledge? The key is not to exploit her fear, but to recognize it for what it is. If a woman is staying with you only because she's scared to be alone, you don't actually have her respect or true investment, and respect is the foundation of attraction. Instead of clinging to her neediness, you should focus on being the man she chooses out of desire, not the man she clings to out of fear. When you notice this weakness in a woman, it also teaches you something powerful. Withholding your presence can be more impactful than words. If she fears loneliness, your ability to step back creates space that forces her to reflect. But the difference is, you're not pulling away to play games. You're doing it because your life has value outside of her. That contrast between her fear of being alone and your comfort with independence makes her chase harder. At the end of the day, men who recognize this fear stop confusing neediness with love. They understand that real attraction is built on respect, not desperation. And once you see that truth, you'll never mistake her fear of loneliness for genuine devotion again. 7. They struggle to respect a man who chases. If there's one dynamic that destroys a man's power faster than anything else, it's chasing. Women might enjoy the attention in the short term, but deep down, they lose respect for the man who constantly pursues, begs, or tries to win them over. It's a harsh reality most men don't want to accept. The harder you chase, the further she runs. Let's break this down. Women are naturally wired to value what they earn, not what's handed to them. When a man chases endlessly, he flips the script. Instead of her working for his approval, he's the one working for hers. She might accept the attention, even use it to boost her ego, but respect quietly fades away. She can't admire the man who makes her the center of his universe because it tells her one thing: he has no other options. Picture this. A guy texts her every morning, checks in throughout the day, plans all the dates, and constantly asks if she's happy. At first it looks sweet, but soon it becomes suffocating. She starts to wonder, why does he try so hard? Doesn't he have anything else going on? His chasing doesn't make her feel special. It makes him look desperate. And desperation is the enemy of attraction. Now compare that with the man who doesn't chase. He shows interest, but he doesn't overdo it. He's focused on his purpose, his goals, his growth. He's not begging for her time. She's competing for his. That man triggers a completely different reaction. Instead of taking him for granted, she respects him. Instead of pulling away, she invests more. The energy flips because she feels she has to earn him. This is the secret most men never learn. Women don't respect men who bend over backwards to prove themselves. They respect men who know their worth and refuse to lower their standards. When you chase, you communicate that her attention is more valuable than your own self-respect. When you stop chasing, you communicate that your time and energy are worth something, and she either rises to meet that standard or loses her place in your life. So, what's the right approach? Show genuine interest. Yes. Be clear about your intentions. Yes. But never overextend. Don't flood her with attention she hasn't earned. Don't make her the prize when the truth is, you are the prize. When you operate from that mindset, she sees you differently. She respects you, she desires you, and she values the time and energy you give. At the end of the day, women may enjoy the chase on the surface, but deep down, they can't respect the man who does it. Respect is reserved for the man who stands firm, who moves with purpose, and who refuses to lose himself in pursuit of someone else. Gentlemen, the truth is simple. Women have weaknesses just like men, but only the men who recognize them gain the advantage. Validation, attention, emotional control, fear of loneliness, all of these shape how women act in relationships. The difference between the man who gets disrespected and the man who gets admired is awareness. Don't ignore these patterns and don't let them control you. Use them as lessons to stand stronger, lead with confidence, and protect your value. Because when you understand these truths, you stop chasing and she starts respecting the man you've become.